What is something a guest did at your home that shocked you? Someone took a nice crystal picture frame full of pictures of me growing up because their friend wanted a frame, so obviously steal it from my house. I didn't notice, but when my mom did she was really sad, just wanted the pictures back as they were her only copies, but the kids threw them out. The fricks. It's the only thing they can't replace. Stocked our refrigerator, cupboards, and liquor cabinet to more levels than when they arrived. Me and the wife had to go out for a while and we came home to that surprised. The classiest thing a guest has ever done. Thank God something positive happened. Practically had an aneurysm from reading all the animal abuse stories. Their daughter killed my daughter's hamster by repeatedly dropping it from the top of the bunk bed to the floor. Stay the night and crap in a large McDonald's cup because the bathroom was too far away, leaving it outside of my window covered in rags. They still deny it. I guess the crap monster stopped by my house that night. Crap fairy. Their child ripped our spare bedroom curtains right off the wall and pulled the shower curtain rod down. Parents didn't say a word. We didn't find out till after they left. Come to think of it, I'm blaming the toddler. Could have been the parents. I had someone who, for some reason, supported their weight on the shower extension pipe that comes from the wall to the shower nozzle and broke it. It wasn't my guest, but I was the one who had to fix it cause no one else there knew what they were doing or had any tools or telephone. Locked themselves in the only guest bathroom, freaking on the floor, with a house full of beer drinkers throwing a birthday party. Girlfriend's friends did this. They were at least courteous enough to not lock the door and hide behind the shower curtain. Didn't get caught till the fifth person. My dad had an intern, Keith, who was working at his company, and the kid, 20-something who was just finishing up his PhD, was getting paid crap. So my dad told him to come stay in our spare room and save on rent, food, gas. He lived with us for almost a year and never once paid anyone off. I didn't realize this was shocking until I started having roommates of my own. He helped my dad install a hot tub in our backyard, and then built a privacy fence around it and laid a tile walkway to it on a Saturday when my dad was out of town. He dug post holes and mixed up mortar or concrete or whatever and set the posts himself, and then did all the staining. I'm not like a fence connoisseur or anything, but I'm pretty sure we had the best fence in town. It was still there when my parents sold the house a decade later. My dad purchased most of the building supplies and they planned on doing it together in a couple weeks. But Keith said he got bored easily and the weather was nice, so he figured he'd help out. He'd also babysit, entertain me and my sister, and take us to the movies or the mall or whatever, and constantly complimented my mom's cooking. My dad gave him a glowing reference that helped him score a way better job across the country when he graduated, and flew out for his wedding a couple years later. Even living with people I've been in love with, I've never had a roommate who was so completely trouble-free. A smart, genuinely kind person who works hard and is good with kids is at least as shocking as any of the horror stories in here, I think. My old roommate's brother drunkenly beat off on our apartment roof in a sleet storm on New Year's Eve during the fireworks show. He said he wanted to bust the first nut of the new year. I'd like to believe he succeeded, but I went inside. The man sounded like he had a plan. Can't fault him for that. My friend and his wife came in just for a minute to see my new house before we all went out together. I showed them the kitchen, dining room, and living room, and she said, "Is this it? They're rich on inherited money." I am not. I was pretty offended that she would say something that rude. We're not friends anymore, because they are just terrible snobs. At my youngest kid's first birthday, they are twins. One of my relatives brought their fairly imbalanced kids with them. Normally it's not too big of a deal since everyone just stays outside. Well, they decided they didn't need to pay attention to their kids, and when I was inside taking care of some things, I hear noises coming from my daughter's room. I open the door and find their oldest daughter in the middle of the room looking at me like, "Who the frick are you and why are you in here?" The entire room was torn apart, stuff everywhere. The bed was moved into the middle of the room. I mention it to my mother, and by the end of the party my relative is in there with her kid taking care of it. She laughed it off like it's no big deal, because she rearranges rooms all the time. Like, really? You let your kid go and completely redo someone's room in another person's house like it's completely normal? Worst part, it looked really nice and ended up having more space after it was moved around. She might be some kind of idiot savant for decorating. My dad is a realtor, and he invited a potential buyer who was a longtime friend to our house for dinner. My mom is an amazing cook and was working 4 hours to make a great meal. To ensure that the deal would be successful, as dinner was winding down, my mom began serving everyone coffee. When our guest ran out of coffee, instead of asking for more, he simply tapped his spoon against the coffee mug until my mom took it away. He was never invited back. What a jerk. My best friend Laura had a strange cousin asked to stay at her house for a week during a business conference. We'll call her Stacy. So Stacy stayed in Laura's bed, while Laura slept on the couch. Stacy apparently started her period, but was too embarrassed to tell Laura or go to the store to buy any tampons or pads. So she just used rolled up toilet paper. Now, this is where we all get really confused. She was also too embarrassed to flush it, so she left it rolled up in Laura's bed. All week, an entire week of period toilet paper crumpled in her white sheets. So naturally, Laura rolled up all her bedding and threw it away. I'd also like to mention we are all in our late 20s early 30s. TLDR. She left a week's worth of toilet paper and period blood in her bed. Kyle. He cleaned my entire apartment. My roommate took sleeping pills. I went to get groceries, and when I got back Kyle was vacuuming. He'd folded all my laundry, washed all my dishes, and changed my sheets. I was confused as frick. Sounds like a nice guy. Filled the cat litter tray with his own pee. It was an inch above the level of the litter. I had some buddies in college that did this to my friend every time we threw a party. Twice a month I would walk in on 2 guys pee in the litter box. A friend of mine was eating a candy bar. After he was finished, he quietly stuffed the wraps underneath the couch he was sitting on. I didn't really know what to say. I had a few friends staying with me for a couple days. One night we all got home and one dude wanted to watch the NHL highlights, so he took out his iPad and was watching. I told him to just broadcast it to the Apple TV so everyone could watch. That was that. Fast forward like 3 hours. 6 of us grown men are now deep in a YouTube K-hole of watching people fall off treadmills and hurt themselves in comical ways. NHL iPad dude says I'm gonna go use the bathroom and no one really cares. Well, about 5-7 minutes later, we are in the middle of some comical video of someone's misfortune and suddenly the screen switches over to some mid-90s lesbian pee. The 5 of us just dead stop, look at each other and just instantly know what happened. NHL dude just went to overtime shootout mode. He was in the bathroom with his iPad and forgot to turn off the broadcast mode. We all are laughing so hard that no sound is coming out of our bodies. I changed the Apple TV so fast as to interrupt the signal and put on a new video. Dude comes out at least 15 minutes later, sits down for 5 seconds and goes, "Well, I am going to bed." Double quote. Littlest munch kid tried to take some of my PS3 games. I noticed they were missing after they left. I called the parents and the kids pretended they just fell into his bag. Black Ops 2 does not just fall into your bag. A swipe. Note this was 2 days after launch and he wasn't even allowed to be playing those kinds of games. I watched him come back and read me an apology note, crying his eyes out the whole time. I was kinda miffed, but just told him not to be doing that when he gets older. You were lucky that kid has some good parents. My friend brought his buddy over one day. We were eating pizza topped with banana peppers, and I guess this guy decides it's too hot, so he gets up, goes to the fridge, cracks open a brand new jug of milk and just starts drinking it right out of the jug. I mean, seriously, who does that at another person's house? My wife's grandmother came over to visit and got there before my wife or I got off work. We told her to let herself in and when I got home she had rearranged our kitchen. It was the second closest I've come to murdering a geriatric, and she could not understand why I was upset about it. It was 3 years ago and I still get pee when I think about it. Phil hung dripping towels on my expensive spare TV, then threw a hissy fit when I politely asked him not to. An old friend of my now wife was passing through town and crashed on our couch. I knew he'd had trouble with drugs in the past. Did not expect him to pull out the pipe and ask if it was okay if he smoked a little H before bed. At least he offered to share. We declined the offer, but let him do his thing. Honestly, it could have been a lot worse. He's most likely an addict, so as a rage addict he first asked if it was okay to use. Very respectful. He freaking offered you some, which is nice, especially for an addict, and he didn't steal any of your crap. I think you got off lucky here. Okay, the story I'm about to tell makes me so angry that my hands are practically shaking. So my mom invited one of her childhood friends to our house for spring break last year. This woman is around 300 pounds. Twice divorced with an absolute piece of crap son. We'll call him A. So these M waltz into our goddamn house, acting like they own the dang place. Keep in mind my mom hasn't talked to her since high school. In India, they found each other on Facebook, and this B, we'll call her Auntie M because that's what she demanded my sister and I call her, basically invited herself over to our house. Just a few of the things they did. I'm on mobile right now but I'll add more later. 0. So this dysfunctional duo shows up at our house and immediately claimed my sister's room. Literally walked upstairs and just put their bags and crap on her bed. 1. The son was like a fast food addict, so my sister and or I would have to drive him to a restaurant every meal. He literally would not finish a single thing my mom made. 2. My mom made some bombas chicken rolls when they were here, so this worthless piece of crap A started eating them. He finished 3 of his when I was on my second one. He ate like a pig and proceeds to reach across the table and grab my last one off my plate. After he was done stuffing his face with my last one, he put a finger in his mouth and made himself throw up. This B made himself throw up at the motherfucking table. Then he got up and asked me to drive him to fricking Popeyes. 3. After Auntie M apologized on his behalf and cleaned up his puke off our table, she gave A $20 and begged me to drive him to Popeyes. So I loaded this piece of crap into my car and drove his sorry butt to KFC, because frick this kid, that's why. When we pulled up to the window to pay, he just didn't do anything. I was like, "Hey, you gonna pay?" And this Astad was like, "Oh, D-Pro 1. I thought you were going to pay," then proceeded to argue with me for like 5 minutes about how his mom hadn't given him any cash so I had to pay. Keep in mind we were still just sitting in the fricking drive-thru. Finally I had to call his mom in front of the drive-thru attendant while she shouted at him. I finally pulled the 20 out of his back pocket and handed it over with a piece of crap grin on his face. 4. Auntie M, her third night at our house, started verbally harassing the crap out of my sister. First she told her to lose some weight, which is ironic because this B looked like Shamu with droopy titties. Then, she told my sister to go get a haircut. She told my sister her hair looked like a rat's nest, caked in crap. Then, that night the B snuck into my room where my sister and I were sleeping, and cut her fricking hair. This motherfucking piece of crap cut my sister's hair while she was sleeping. She offered to clean up the hair off the floor in the morning, but other than that she wasn't apologetic in the least. Steal my Magic the Gathering cards. Frick you, Gabriel. There's a reason nobody likes you now. Holy crap, my so's cousin did that. She came over to stay for a few days in our spare bedroom. I had boxed up my Ice Age and 4th edition cards that I had so I could teach the kids to play. When she left, I went into the room's closet to get the box and it was gone. Cue sad trombone sound. After a party, a particularly wasted friend crashed on our couch. When I woke up he had kicked in my door and was sitting on my bedroom floor staring at me like a fricking pet cat. He acted like it was the most normal thing in the world, and was never invited over again. A large group of us guys were having a few drinks before going out one night. One of my good friends brought their slightly odd flatmate along. Fair enough. The more the merrier, we thought. After having 2 drinks he proceeded to vomit right in the middle of the crowded living room. What makes it strange is that he vomited into his hand. Like that somehow helped the situation. He stared at it in embarrassment for ages, then proceeded to leave. Funny in hindsight, disgusting at the time. A guy I used to work with was sitting around with a bunch of people at a campfire, drinking steadily. At one point he had to puke. So he opened up his shirt pocket and puked into it. Didn't even bother standing up. And then he cracked open another beer. Broke a piece of my furniture and got a bruise on his leg in the process. Then threatened to sue me over it. When I was 8, my brother's friend came over with his sister. She was around 5 or so and complained the whole day about wanting to go home. Around dinner time she says she needs to pee. My mum shows her where the bathroom is and while she's walking there, she stops and decides she can't wait anymore. Stupid B proceeds to unleash her pee all over my awesome dollhouse. Guess you have to take me home now, my mum's name. That was 10 years ago and I still death stare her with the hatred of an 8-year-old girl whose dollhouse smells like another girl's pee. When I was 10, I went over to a friend's house with some other kids. It was the first time I've been to his house and he kicked me out because I laughed at this picture of him, naked, sitting on a fake alligator. I'm sorry I laughed at your premature whiner, Joss. When I was younger, a friend and I got crap-faced drunk and decided to crash back at my place. So I set her up on the couch and go to bed. As I am about to fall asleep, my door opens and the light turns on. My friend walks in holding an empty can of soda and is giggling her butt off. She doesn't say anything, walks to the side of my bed, puts the can on the floor, pulls her pants down, and starts trying to pee in this can. All while still giggling and making eye contact the entire time as I'm screaming Anna, WTF are you doing, stop. She didn't stop until she was done going, got up, pulled her pants back up, and left my room. She pee all over my floor. Barely any got in the can. Still don't know why this happened. There were 2 bathrooms in that house. She doesn't know either. One time, my parents decided to have our living room painted. So 2 painters, a male and a female, come to work on painting the room. After a few days, they come back again to continue to work. I was at school, my parents were at work, but my brother was home from college for break. Well, at around 11 or so in the morning, he heard them making love somewhere in our house. To this day I don't know what he did, what he saw, or anything else that happened, and I sure as heck don't want to. Needless to say the painters were fired. TLDR. Parents hired painters. They smashed each other and painted each other white. Stayed on a phone call to her boyfriend all the way through the family dinner. My mother-in-law and father-in-law were babysitting our kids while we went on a date. My son later told me grandma asked us a lot of questions. Come to find out she had interrogated our children, 7 and 4 at the time, about what we said about the grandparents when they weren't around. Do your parents drink alcohol? etc. Very religious. She then apparently went through the drawers in our bedroom and didn't do a good job of concealing it. When they decided to come for an impromptu visit, we live 150 miles away, I told them to get the frick off of my porch and not to return. I went back in the house, at which point my father-in-law started screaming at my wife in the front yard. I looked out and saw him jab his finger into her chest and I had that nice white hot righteous anger wash over me. I opened the door, jumped off the porch and headed toward him, at which point he took off running through the neighborhood. I'm 6 feet 4 inches and about 250 at the time, and apparently I look a little scary when angry. My wife eventually got me calmed down and we allowed them to drive off. This is all happening total redneck in the front yard of our house in a very nice subdivision. Since then, we have very limited contact with them and my kids, and left alone with them despite being older. My father-in-law has been told that if he ever lays another finger on my wife that I will drop him before he can say God with his mouth open. Ironically, my religious mother-in-law is now addicted to painkillers and alcohol. This is about the only one in the entire thread, so far, that I thought ended about how it should. When I was about 10 years old, a buddy was sleeping over one night. At some point I head to the bathroom to blast a dookie, so I'm sitting there mid-blast when in walks my friend, casual as can be, and he sits down on the edge of the bathtub and starts chatting me up. I was in shock. At one point he made a comment about the smell, and I said something along the lines of, "It's probably because you're 2 inches away from me while I'm taking a crap." Oh, and we had corned beef for dinner, and within minutes after the meal he puked it up violently. That was a memorable sleepover. My parents' friends' kids were spitting on my parents for the whole evening. Their parents did not even try to stop them, as if it was a normal thing to do. Kicked my dog because it was annoying her, my aunt, my mom's baby sister who can do no wrong in her eyes. Tried to steal my credit card information through some con artist scheme. To be fair, he wasn't really a guest, just my new neighbor who wanted to say hello. You have been visited by the magical sugar jar Puggo. He'll only share his sweetener if you comment "Surga please, Mr. Pupper." Thanks for watching. If you are new to the channel, you can subscribe. I publish new videos every day. Until then, check another video, or don't. Either way, have a great day you magnificent people.